Hey guys, what's up? Jason Witter here. I wanted to talk to you about the transition phase. And what is the transition phase? Well, for most people between the ages of 45 and 65, life starts to get really real, okay? It's also an opportunity for us to save a lot of money, right? And make a lot of corrections in some of our financial planning, right? Okay. So that is a time between the age of 45 and 65. Now, here's what happens, a few notes I made, okay? This is a time where retirement planning like hits you for real, okay? And the reason that the transition phase is so important is it's because it's a time in your life where you go from accumulating all your assets to trying to figure out how you're going to distribute and utilize all your assets, okay? And for a lot of middle Americans who are in the $40,000 to $50,000 a year average, right, which is most people, they haven't even really planned for that. A lot of them don't even know what retirement is, okay? Because they're not really going to be able to see it. So what can we do to kind of fix all that and plan for all that, okay? So another thing that's going to run into is that terms that we've picked up while we were younger are typically going to end sometime in the next 10 years, okay? And, one of the things that as an agent who sells even a lot of final expense, it's not the only thing I do, but I do sell a lot of final expense insurance, right? And the one thing that I know that most people say is they wish they would have did it 10 or 15 years earlier. And there's a lot of reasons why they haven't done it 10 or 15 years earlier. But term versus perm, let's think about this, right? Term insurance is typically gonna expire while you still need final expense coverage. And that transition time is what I'm talking about, right? What if I didn't plan for that? What if I got a term when I was 20, 30 years old and now I'm 50, 60, it's up. And now those permanent policies, because I need something that's gonna last till I'm like age 100 or more, right? Just to cover my butt, cover my family's butt. We're gonna find out they're gonna be super, super expensive, right? And these clients that I see, they're not wealthy, right? They haven't, maybe you're one of them and you're not wealthy. You had a good life, you had a great home, you raised kids, but you're just not wealthy, right? So that $200 a month bill, that $100 a month bill, that $150 a month bill of a permanent policy becomes to be a burden unless you want to just settle for like a $5,000 to $10,000 policy, $15,000 policy, like I see a lot of seniors do, okay? There's some other things to think about. Not only besides permanent coverage becoming expensive, some other things you run into. You have retirement accounts, right? Between 45 and 65, you may have made a job change, lost a job once, twice, 3 years. People generally in this age group were still part of the group, unlike millennials and zennials. They were still part of a group that worked for about 30 years for a company, right? So they may only have changed jobs maybe once or twice. But what they didn't do is move those old 401ks. I remember a story of a client I had who had one about 40,000, right? Because he didn't work his whole career there, about 40,000 in the 401k, and it was just left there. He never moved the 401k. Well, that meant that when the markets were going bad in 2008, that also meant that there was fees to manage that fund and he wasn't contributing to it. By the time we actually had that discussion, there wasn't more than like $6,000 left in that one. So we were able to help move that $6,000 and save it, but we were also able to help move 2 other accounts that he had that were about to go through the same thing. So that's just a story that you can kind of relate to, right? Now, work policies, that's another thing. Work policies, if you're at 45 to 65, you're coming up on retirement, maybe you have a health scare, right? Maybe they're cutting and letting go some of the people in their 50s and 60s trying to hire younger people for half the price. I mean, all these things happen, right? At that time, those work policies are going to go away, okay? So now let's look at a few other things, right? Your term one day, right, if you have a term, right, will need to become a perm, right? Did you obtain a perm, right? Let's say I got a term for income protection, mortgage protection. Let's say I got it for, I just want to cover, maybe I layered it and I got a few different terms so that as my kids get older, they just fall off because they just want some basic protection in case something happened to me. But when all that's said and done, remember 92% of terms don't pay out, guys. So when you reach 55, 65, if you waited till that age, you're still at the younger age of final expense policies, right? But why not plan sooner, right? There's dividends, there's cash value, there's all kinds of things that can build up to be to your potential, not to mention the fact that by the time you hit 65, 70, if you'd done it sooner, that policy could be paid up and paid off, okay? So that's another good point if you did it sooner, okay? And like I said earlier, only talking to you from an agent standpoint that I tell you almost, I'll say every single client I ever talked to go, man, I should have did this 10 years earlier, right? So that was kind of my inspiration to this video, okay? So as I'm looking in going through this, I want to have a little bit of talk to you guys before I go into some of the benefits, right, of what you can do, okay? Some of the benefits of permanent policy, there's numerous, right? But when we're looking at, some bigger things, let's look at this. I remember there was a nurse, right? I'll say a nurse. I can't give names, but the nurse, I remember meeting her in about 2016, and we were talking about her retirement. Let's talk about that, okay? Now she, like a lot of other people, maybe you're one of those people, I was one of those people, 2008 was not a good year for everybody, right? Well, they had a lot of money in investments, real estate, all kinds of stuff like that. But those of us that had most of our money tied up in a 401k, we had to say goodbye to a lot of that money. I believe it was like a 38% drop this young lady took. And the thing that you want to talk about is this. It's not what percentage did she lose, it's how much of that loss did she have time to re-earn? Well, guess what? She's in her late 50s. She didn't have a lot of time now, right? Could she have prepared, maybe diversified a little bit? Yeah, there's a lot of options, right? And I'm going to go over some of those options here before the end of the video, right? But the thing that I want you to realize is if you were to lose, let's just say $50,000 out of a $100,000 account, guys, right? If the market comes back 50%, you're not getting back to where you were. You need to make like 130, 140, 150% return to even regain where you were to get your foothold back, And a lot of people, they forget a very simple math equation. If you have $100,000 and you lose 50%, you would now have $50,000, right? In your accounts, you have an actual account, right, which is your hard-earned money, and then you have like we call the fluff account, right, the account that looks sexy on paper, right? They send it out to, I got 300,000 in there. No, that's if everything goes accordingly. If you don't take any loans, if you don't have any surrenders or penalties, or that's what we are wanting to see long-term. But what you actually have is what matters. So let's talk about this. If I lose 100 or lose 50, and then they give me 50 back, well, 50% of 50 is only 25. So now when I recoup my losses, I'm only back to 75. I still lost $25,000, right? So looking at percentages and not looking at your actual account can kind of get you a little bit confused and leave you hanging a little bit, okay? Most people are kind of unaware of a few things, right? One, you're gonna pay for life insurance most of your life anyway, okay? Whether it be a term, then you pick up another term, or whether you look at the high cost of a perm, right? It really depends on what you're doing. Two, you can get a permanent policy super, super cheap while you're younger, right? Not to mention some of the other benefits that are there, right? And that permanent policy can include a lot of extra benefits, right? And this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys, but I'm gonna kind of give you about 4 or 5 little tidbits of information I think are very important. So some of the things that my clients have found to be very beneficial in a permanent policy is this. Between 45 and 65, what's the one thing I haven't mentioned that goes wrong, right? We have to deal with taxes, we have to deal with distribution issues instead of accumulating. We have a lot of different things to deal with, but it's your health. So not only if you get older, what if you've developed diabetes? What if you had a car accident, got injured, had an amputation? What if there's a lot of things that can go wrong here, right? So are we covered for that? Did I get cancer, right? So looking at some of the benefits, one, cancer protection. There's something called accelerated living benefits, and you find them in permanent policies. Now, a lot of companies are adding them to term policies. As a matter of fact, I just did a term for a local business owner here in Jacksonville, Florida. We added living benefits to that. So he gets this on a term. So I want to make sure you understand that you can get that on a term, but it started off as a benefit on permanent policies, okay? One, cancer protection. If you get cancer, you can accelerate that benefit and use it while you're still alive. Spend time with your family, go on vacation, pay off the house, right? But do that stuff while you're alive where you can actually enjoy it with your family, right? Chronic illness protection. If you get a chronic illness, subsequently, your expenses are gonna go up a few $100 a month just because of the medical treatment you're gonna need on a monthly basis. And not all of it is gonna be covered by insurance, right? So when we think about that, would we like to receive a payout from our life insurance company and a guaranteed sum monthly, right, to pay those premiums, right, on those chronic illness payments, right? Cash growth. Now this one's huge. A lot of people want a lot of things. They want access, they want growth, and I'm going to do another video about that, 9 different things that you want, right, in an investment vehicle, right? But for right now, let's talk about market protection, right? Because we all want to grow our money, but what if we could even grow our money in a down market? There's a lot of people talking about the potential for a correction right now, right? Well, if the market corrects, we could be looking at another big, huge set of losses. Now, I don't want to be one of the people that are trying to market, oh my gosh, be scared of the market. Listen, the market does this. If you stay in it for a long time, you're good, right? But there are some times where it makes more sense to not be as exposed to the market, right? And I know advisors and advisories, they'll say, hey, let's diversify, let's focus more on bond related stocks and things that are going to keep your risk down. I get the idea. But what if you could combine, your insurance expenses, but still get the protection of the market, still have good qualified growth? I'm talking like 10% plus, right? What if you could still do that, right? So imagine losing zero when other people lose 20%. Imagine if 2008 you lost nothing because your money was protected. What if it was asset protected? What if it was probate protected, right? These things are all things that you can have, right? The same can be done with a retirement rollover, by the way. We're not just talking about a life insurance policy. If you have an old IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP, you name it, they're all IRAs, right? But if you have one of those individual retirement accounts, whatever it's labeled, depends on what you did for a living, military, whether you worked at a school, your school teacher, something like that, right? If you have one of those accounts, you can make zero your hero. And it's one of my favorite models, make zero your hero, right? Because make money when the market's up, but you don't have to lose money when the market's down. Now, when you're younger and you want to be really aggressive and you're really trying to invest, by all means, I completely understand. Have money in the market, have money in real estate. But when you start to consolidate, right, where do you want your money to be to where you can still have access to it without severe penalties, where you can still, and I'm talking like within 48 hours. I'm not talking like selling a property. I'm not talking, and again, that's more for the next video, but you get my point. Right, that's true diversification, right? When no matter what the market does, I'm still not going to lose any money, okay? So again, guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but I want you guys to ask yourself a quick question. When it comes from asset accumulation to asset distribution, how are you going to handle that transition? And have you taken a look at something like what the insurance world has to offer? Because you have to understand the purpose of insurance is to what? Protect and replace. Think about that. Protect and replace. Well, at the oldest years of my life, when I'm done working and I'm not going to accumulate much more, what do I really want my financial setup to look like, right? And I'm going to tell you, look at everything like it's a pie, okay? You should have some real estate, you should have some stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? And you should have a great advisor for that, but you should also have an insurance advisor that helps you understand that a big chunk of your assets should be protected and set up for future growth at the same time while still protecting your health and leaving a legacy for your family. So I hope that helps educate you guys about the transitional phase of life. And if you have any more questions, you can hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Health Wealth Agency. And my name is